There is a highway in Colorado where the mountain can kill you in under 3 seconds. No warning, no escape, just a wall of snow moving at 150 miles per hour, and then silence. They call it the $1 Million Highway, and for over a century, its avalanches have been burying people alive, entire families, snowplow crews, a pastor and his 2 young daughters swallowed by the mountain on a Sunday morning while driving to church, gone before anyone even knew the slide had run. This road has no guardrails. In some spots, it's barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass, and above it, 124 avalanche chutes loaded every single winter with enough snow to flatten everything below. But here's what makes this story different from every other disaster you've ever heard about. The killing didn't stop. The mountain didn't become safer. And yet, somehow, the deaths did stop. For over 30 years, not a single person has been killed by an avalanche on this road. So what changed? And what is the one thing standing between you and the White Death every single time you drive it? There is a place in southwestern Colorado where the road itself feels like a dare. US Highway 550 runs 25 miles through the heart of the San Juan Mountains, connecting the small mountain towns of Ouray and Silverton. On a map, it looks like any other mountain road. In reality, it is one of the most unforgiving stretches of pavement on the North American continent. The highway summits at 11,018 feet on Red Mountain Pass, before plunging nearly 3,000 feet back down into Ouray, a descent so steep and so fast that first-time drivers grip their steering wheels with both hands and refuse to look left. Because to the left, there is nothing. No guardrail, no barrier, just open air and a sheer drop into the canyon hundreds of feet below. The missing guardrails are not an accident or an oversight. They are a deliberate engineering decision driven by a brutal reality. 300 inches of snow falls on Red Mountain Pass every year, and snowplows need that shoulder space to push it off the edge. Put up a guardrail, and you trap the snow on the road. So the guardrails stay gone, and the edge stays open. In some sections, the 2 lanes narrow to just 23 feet wide, barely enough for 2 vehicles to squeeze past each other without someone losing a mirror. Large trucks use this road daily. So do tourists in rental cars who have never seen a mountain in their lives. The highway has carried many names. Officially, it is US Route 550, part of the San Juan Skyway Scenic Byway, but most people know it as the $1 Million Highway, a nickname with origins nobody can fully agree on. Some say it cost $1 million per mile to build when it was reconstructed in the 1920s. Others say the fill dirt beneath the road contains $1 million worth of gold ore left over from the mining era. And there are those who simply say no one would drive it again for $1 million. All 3 explanations feel equally true. The road began as a toll route built by Otto Mears in 1883 to haul silver and gold ore out of the San Juan mining districts. By 1924, it was paved. By the time the mines went quiet, the highway had become the only lifeline connecting Silverton to the outside world, carrying mail, food, medicine, and people across a mountain that had never agreed to be crossed. Above that road, carved into the volcanic slopes of the San Juans, sit 124 avalanche chutes. Nearly 3 dozen are classified as capable of causing significant destruction. And every winter, every storm, every night that snow falls on these mountains, each one of them loads with a little more weight. The mountain is always watching. The mountain is always waiting. The avalanches on OS 550 did not begin when someone decided to build a road through the San Juan Mountains. They began millions of years before that, when the volcanic peaks above what would become Red Mountain Pass first took shape. The road simply gave the mountain something new to aim at. People have been dealing with avalanches in this corridor since the late 1800s, when miners first pushed into the San Juans chasing silver and gold. They knew the slides were coming. They just had no way to stop them. The best strategy available was instinct. Read the sky, watch the snow, and hope the mountain gave some warning before it moved. It rarely did. The single most dangerous chute along the entire corridor has always been the East Riverside Slide. It runs down the face of Abrams Mountain and crosses US 550 directly, dropping everything it carries onto the road below. Over the decades, it became the place where the highway's death toll concentrated, where the mountain, again and again, extracted its most devastating price. The first recorded death at East Riverside was a miner, killed alongside his dog and his horse at the turn of the century. There was no program to investigate it, no policy change that followed. The mountain ran, the man died, and the road stayed open because it had to. Then came the morning of March 3rd, 1963. Reverend Marvin Hudson was making his regular drive over Red Mountain Pass to lead Sunday services at the Silverton Congregational Church. He had his two daughters with him, Amelia, 17, and Pauline, just 11 years old. A heavy storm had already triggered East Riverside once that morning. The road was icy and treacherous, and as Reverend Hudson approached the slide path, his car began to slip. He stopped on the highway to install his tire chains. Directly beneath the chute, the mountain released again. Reverend Hudson was found the next day. Amelia was found a week later. Pauline was recovered 3 months after that, carried 300 feet downstream by the force of the avalanche before the snow finally released her. A roadside marker still stands on US 550 at the site of their deaths. It reads that the Hudson family was swept to their deaths 1,000 feet north of that marker on a Sunday morning while answering the call of Christian duty. By 1992, 7 people had died at the East Riverside Slide alone, and still, the only defense the highway had was the instincts of the men driving the snowplows, reading the mountain from the cab of a truck, with nothing but experience and fear to guide them. That was about to change. But first, the mountain would claim one more. The storm that moved over the San Juan Mountains on the night of March 4th, 1992, was not unusual by Red Mountain Pass standards. Snow came hard and heavy, piling onto the steep slopes of Abrams Mountain with the kind of quiet, relentless pressure that avalanche country breeds all winter long. But the East Riverside Slide was cycling, releasing roughly every 60 minutes, like a clock that only ran in one direction. The Colorado Department of Transportation crew on the pass that night knew the rhythm. They had been timing it carefully, counting the minutes between each release, trying to stay one step ahead of a mountain that had already killed 6 people on this exact stretch of road. The Snow Shed, a concrete tunnel built in 1985 at a cost of $2.7 million, offered some protection where it stood, but it was only 185 feet long. Snow was building up dangerously on both ends, outside the shed's reach, piling into walls that nobody could move fast enough. Around 3 a.m., David Jaramillo, 36 years old, stepped outside the north end of the snow shed to repair one of the CDOT vehicles before the next cycle hit. His supervisor, Eddie Imel, 38, watched from the shed entrance. Then, Imel made a decision that would cost him his life. He ran out to help. He knew time was running out. He ran anyway. 65 minutes after the last slide, the familiar rumble came down from Abrams Mountain. It happened in seconds. A wall of snow crashed into both men and swept them out of sight. Their co-workers, watching from inside the snow shed, could do nothing. The mountain had taken them before anyone could move. The crew was trapped for 8 hours, pinned under the shed, unable to reach the buried men, unable to call for help. In the immediate aftermath, both Jaramillo and Imel were alive. Those inside the shed could hear sounds in the snow, but the debris was packed so hard in Jaramillo's mouth that he could not call back. Somehow, the two men found each other in the darkness beneath the snow and carved out a small cave. For hours, Jaramillo fought to keep Emil alive and warm. When that fight became impossible, he turned toward the only thing left he could control. He started digging. 18 hours after the slide, David Jaramillo broke through 20 feet of snow that had set hard as concrete and pulled himself out onto the surface. He walked to the phone inside the snow shed, called for rescue, and asked them to bring a pack of cigarettes. Eddie Imel did not make it out. He was the 6th person to die at the East Riverside slide, and the last. Because what happened next ensured that no one would ever have to die there again. Eddie Imel's death broke something open in the community around Red Mountain Pass. The grief was real, but so was the anger. By 1992, science and technology had advanced far beyond the seat-of-the-pants methods still being used on US 550. The idea that a plow driver's gut instinct was the last line of defense between a loaded avalanche chute and the people driving beneath it was no longer acceptable. Something systematic had to be built, and it had to be built fast. The Colorado Department of Transportation partnered with the Colorado Avalanche Information Center to create the U.S. Highway 550 Avalanche Reduction Program, the first formal avalanche forecasting program dedicated to a single highway corridor in the region. For the first time, trained scientists would be embedded in the daily operation of keeping this road open and alive. Danny Hogan was hired as the first associate forecaster for the CAIC focused exclusively on US 550. He worked alongside fellow expert John Bachman, and together they faced a challenge that had no real blueprint. Ski resorts could close their runs when conditions turned dangerous. The $1 Million Highway could not. Silverton depended on this road for everything: food, medicine, mail, survival. The highway had to stay open, which meant the avalanches had to be managed, predicted, and brought down on human terms rather than the mountains. The first full winter of the program, 1992 to 1993, produced staggering numbers. 152 avalanches crossed US 550 that season. 87 ran naturally. 65 were triggered deliberately by the new team using controlled explosives. At the end of that first season, the forecasters' accuracy was independently analyzed. Their precision rate came back at 91.2%. For a brand new program built from nothing, fighting the most avalanche dangerous highway corridor in the continental United States, that number was extraordinary. Today, CAIC monitors 540 avalanche paths across Colorado. Of 522 paths sitting above state highways, crews actively manage 278. US 550 alone accounts for 124 of those chutes, nearly 1 in 5 of every path monitored across the entire state. The mountain had not gotten smaller. The team watching it had simply gotten much, much better. Knowing an avalanche is coming is only half the battle. The other half is deciding when to bring it down yourself. When a CAIC forecaster determines that a chute above US 550 is carrying too much unstable snow, the highway closes, traffic stops, and then the real work begins, because the only way to make the road safe again is to trigger the avalanche on human terms, at a time and place of the team's choosing, before nature decides to do it on its own. The weapons they use to accomplish this are extraordinary. World War II-era 105mm howitzer artillery guns, on loan from the US Army, are towed into position above the most dangerous slide paths. These are the same guns used by the 10th Mountain Division in the European theater, soldiers who learned avalanche warfare in the Alps and brought those techniques back to the American West. On an average year, CDOT fires between 250 and 500 howitzer rounds into Colorado's mountain slopes, specifically to trigger controlled slides. The cannon rounds can reach targets up to 7 miles away. When the terrain is too steep or too remote for artillery, helicopter crews drop explosive charges directly onto slide paths from the air. Avalanche cannons fire trajectory charges into chutes that ground crews cannot safely reach. Hand-thrown explosives handle the gaps that everything else misses. But the howitzers carried a critical limitation. Artillery could only be fired in daylight hours, which meant avalanche control operations happened during peak traffic times, requiring full highway closures at exactly the moments when the most drivers were on the road. The next generation of tools is already changing that. Remote-controlled gas-based systems like GasX and Obelix units, permanently installed on the highest-risk chutes above Red Mountain Pass, can be triggered by a cell phone at 4 in the morning, hours before the first car ever reaches the summit. No crews in the field, no daylight required, no traffic to manage. The mountain is still the mountain, but the people fighting it are no longer waiting for daylight to fight back. Since Eddie Emil was buried by the East Riverside slide in March 1992, not a single person has been killed by an avalanche on US 550. 30-plus years, 124 chutes, hundreds of storms, 0 avalanche fatalities. By any measure, that is one of the most remarkable safety records in the history of American infrastructure. The forecasters, the CDOT crews, the controlled explosions in the pre-dawn darkness, all of it has held. The White Death has not taken anyone from this road since the program began. But the $1 Million Highway has never stopped killing. Over 400 people have died on US 550 since 1992, not from avalanches, but from the road itself. The hairpin curves, the missing guardrails, the sheer drops that wait patiently on the outside edge of every turn. The highway that demands total attention from every driver who dares to use it, and collects a brutal toll from those who forget that for even a moment. Colorado State Patrol troopers who work Red Mountain Pass describe pulling drivers over regularly, not for speeding, but for drifting. The mountains are so overwhelming, so impossible to ignore, that people stop watching the road entirely. Troopers say the most common words out of a pulled-over driver's mouth are the same every time. Guilty as charged. I was looking at the mountains. In August 2025, a silver Honda Civic went off the shoulder near milepost 88, 5 miles south of Ouray. The car rolled 320 feet down the mountainside and came to rest upside down in Red Mountain Creek below. 2 adults were killed. A juvenile girl was pulled from the wreckage 3 hours later and rushed to the hospital. The highway is only 25 miles long. It takes at least 45 minutes to drive in good conditions, and it never, not for a single mile, allows a driver to relax. For Silverton, this road is not a choice. It is the only way in and the only way out. Whatever the mountain costs, the town pays it. On the side of US 550, bolted into the rock face of Red Mountain Pass, there is a small roadside marker that most drivers pass without noticing. It reads that a family was swept to their deaths 1,000 feet north of that marker on a Sunday morning in 1963 while answering the call of Christian duty. Below it, a second marker is dedicated to those who gave the supreme sacrifice in the maintenance of the pass, the lonely vigil of the night, known only to men of courage. 2 markers, 2 different kinds of loss, both carved into the same mountain that is still here, still loaded every winter, still capable of everything it has ever done. The East Riverside slide has claimed 7 lives across more than a century: a miner and his horse, a pastor and his 2 daughters, a snowplow driver who ran out into the dark to help his crewmate and never came back. Each death changed something: a policy rewritten, a program built, a piece of technology installed where nothing stood before. The mountain kept moving. So did the people trying to stop it. CAI. Sea Director Ethan Green is clear about what the 30-year record means and what it does not mean. The team does not take it as a sign that the danger has passed. Every single day of the avalanche season, which now stretches from October all the way through June, demands fresh analysis, fresh data, and fresh decisions. The snowpack is changing as temperatures shift across the region. The threat does not diminish with warming. In many ways, it becomes less predictable, which makes it more dangerous, not less. Red Mountain Pass holds the highest avalanche hazard per mile of any highway on the North American continent. That title has never been revoked. It is not a historical designation. It is a present reality that greets every forecaster who shows up for work each winter morning and every driver who points their car toward the summit. The mountain has no memory of restraint. The people fighting it cannot afford to forget a single day. On a clear summer day, the Million Dollar Highway is one of the most breathtaking drives on the planet. Tourists pull over on Red Mountain Pass and step out of their cars to take photographs of peaks that seem too dramatic to be real. The iron-stained mountains burn rust and amber in the afternoon light. The gorge below the highway drops away into something that looks more like a painting than a place. People stand at the edge and feel genuinely small in the presence of something ancient and enormous. They are right to feel that way, because beneath that beauty, the mountain is always calculating. The snow is always building on those 124 chutes above the road. The slopes that look still and silent from a car window are under constant internal pressure, snow crystals shifting, layers weakening, the invisible architecture of the snowpack bending toward the point where it can no longer hold. Somewhere above every driver on US 550 this winter, that process is already underway. And somewhere below those slopes, a forecaster is already working. Studying overnight snowpack data, reviewing weather station readings from Red Mountain Pass, deciding which chutes are loaded beyond tolerance, which ones need to be brought down before the morning commute begins, which paths can wait another day, and which ones absolutely cannot. The Million Dollar Highway has taken more lives than it should have. The Hudson family, Eddie Emel, the hundreds of others who misjudged a curve, looked away for a moment, or simply trusted the road more than it deserved. Their absence is permanent. The markers along the highway make sure of that. But the reason this road has not claimed an avalanche victim in over 30 years is not luck, and it is not the mountain becoming merciful. It is people, forecasters and plow drivers and CDOT crews working in pre-dawn darkness on a road with no guardrails above a 1,000-foot drop, doing a job that most people will never know exists. The White Death is patient. So are the people who fight it. And so far, they have not lost.